Hi everybody, welcome to this part one of this week's lecture. This week we're going to be talking about professional communications. So in this first part one we're going to be talking about what is professional communications. So it is a broad term and it can cover a multiplicity of activities. This includes journalism, academic writing, professional creative work, everything where your writing is part of a recognised occupation, I suppose. You're professional. You professionally create text within particular genres or in different fields. But specifically in this lecture, we're going to focus on public relations and what public relations is. So this sentence from Tynan describes public relations as the controlled release or exchange of information in various ways and through various outlets, mostly visible through the news media. You'll notice that this quote is from 2011, so it's quite old now, and certainly up until a few years ago, public relations was very much focused on using the mainstream media as its primary conduit. Things have changed a considerable amount since then, and social media and other more direct forms of communication where organisations can communicate directly to their stakeholders and bypass the mainstream media, increasingly common. But that does not detract from the fact that clear writing and clear communication is always needed. In fact, I'll argue, and I mentioned this in the Milo slide, that clarity of information becomes even more important because there's so much textual-based material out there that it's only the really clear and really useful information that will find its target audience. So again, we ask this question, what is professional communication? It is used by organisations to promote ideas, to promote issues, products, inquiries, damage control, all these different things. This could be media management. It could be in the corporate or government sectors. It could be advertising and marketing. But as I've said before, so much work, whether that be visual, whether that be video work or whatever, so much of this begins with the written word as its base core unit, especially its starting point. The base unit, the sentence, the attractive pitch, the idea is jotted down, the text or the email. Often it comes down to the written word as its first originating material sense. So it becomes really, really important that we are writers and we know how to express ourselves and express our ideas, and these ideas need to be able to find an audience. Traditional professional communication has used conventional media systems as its mode of delivery, but as I mentioned before, new media systems, blogs, social media, and the way that messages conform to the particular platforms of which they are used. So the tweet and all that sort of thing becomes far more prevalent than once it was. So who and how? The key elements to successful professional communications are knowing who your audience is. So who are your stakeholders? This might be the general citizenry. It might be your shareholders or your employees or just the people in your geographic region. It might be people that you're trying to attract, people that aren't invested in you currently, but you want them to be. So it's very important as the writer that you know exactly who you're talking to and be able to create and mould the message to suit that audience. So, and what is the best format to communicate to these people in? This could be social media, it could be legacy media, it could be television, television campaign or whatever. But it's very important that you know who your audience is. PR has conventionally used the mainstream media as the vehicle for relevant messages, but sometimes social media is much better. So here we have some terms that will follow you through your degree, but they're really good to become familiar with, and you will use these quite a bit. So we have this idea of the publics. and you'll notice the plural on the public. So the notion of the public is a very modernist concept. The public was once defined as everybody who was the audience of whoever was speaking. So that might be the government, it might be the media, or whoever. And the public was viewed as a singular um, entity. The public was essentially ideologically the same. They shared particular values, particular beliefs, and had particular wants and needs, etc. But in the last 50 or 60 years, that S has emerged at the end of the word. So in putting an S on public and making it publics, we are recognizing that there are lots of different communities, there are lots of different interest groups, there are lots of different people and collectives within a society, and they all might have a different interest. They all might have different objectives. They all might have different ways of seeing the world. There may be base truths in terms of human rights, or or basic kind of human needs. But beyond that, all these different perspectives are all valid, and they all exist. So as a communicator, it's very important that you identify who you're speaking to, and and what your objectives and their objectives are in the communication. Stakeholders is another example. It's often used in corporate communications, but as its name suggests, these are people that have a stake in what you're doing. So if you're an organization, your stakeholders will be your customers, your client. If you're a commercial organization, your stakeholders might be your clients, your employees, your customers, your shareholders, and those different entities. And then you can also stretch that out into the public as well. So a company like Telstra, etc., has very direct stakeholders, but also there's all the other public as well, because telecom infrastructure, even if you're not a Telstra client, is very important to general public well-being. So yes, again, we can think of all these different examples of stakeholders in public. So employees, politicians, opinion leaders, activists, suppliers, customers, investors, community groups, media. All these different groups, and then we have citizens as well. But no one is just a citizen. They may be a student, or they may be an employee, they may be an employer, business owner, or whatever. So everybody has their own, and often a multiple variety of identities, of which need to be communicated to. So who uses professional comms? I mean, this is pretty much everyone. So government agencies, political parties, not-for-profits, corporates, education, research institutes, emergency services, sports organisations, and creative industries. Everybody uses public relations to varying extents, and at various times. So, of course, at the moment, health agencies are very prevalent in their communication, and in bushfire season and summer, emergency services become really important, or in other times where there are large natural disasters, emergency services become important. Governments are always very invested in professional comms, and politicians are as well. So yeah, it's pretty much all of society uses professional comms to some degree. Okay, we'll leave that little lecture there, and you can come back and engage with part 2 after you've read the material on Milo.